My engineering partner told me, medical emergencies create business emergencies, when I discovered from my hospital bed that he had sold our entire patent portfolio for $890,000 while I was undergoing emergency cardiac surgery. My name is Alexander Torres, 46 years old, mechanical engineer with 17 years of patent development experience, specializing in automotive safety innovations and mechanical systems optimization. I had co-developed our intellectual property portfolio through systematic research methodology and comprehensive technical documentation that protected our innovations while enabling strategic licensing opportunities with major automotive manufacturers. When Craig Murphy explained that my medical emergency had created urgent financial pressures requiring immediate patent liquidation to maintain our firm's operational stability, I simply said, "Thank you for managing the business crisis during my medical emergency." What Murphy didn't realize was that my methodical approach to patent development included automated intellectual property management systems and comprehensive authorization protocols that would expose his unauthorized sale of jointly owned patents while I was unconscious during life-saving cardiac surgery. The discovery occurred on my third day of recovery, when I accessed my mobile device to check our patent management dashboard and found sale completion notifications for our entire automotive safety patent portfolio, including our breakthrough collision avoidance system and adaptive braking technology. "Alexander, your cardiac surgery created immediate cash flow concerns that threatened our firm's survival," Murphy explained during his hospital visit while reviewing printed sale documentation. The buyer offered $890,000 cash with a 7-day closing requirement that couldn't accommodate extended medical delays. I reviewed the documentation while monitoring my cardiac recovery progress, noting the compressed timeline and Murphy's detailed explanations about market urgency and financial necessity that seemed designed to justify hasty decision-making. "Craig, our patent licensing strategy emphasized long-term value maximization through strategic partnerships rather than immediate liquidation," I observed, while examining the sale terms. "Which specific financial pressures necessitated immediate portfolio liquidation?" Murphy gathered his paperwork with visible discomfort. "Alexander, your medical condition prevented normal business operations while our overhead expenses continued accumulating." The buyer represented an established automotive technology company requiring immediate patent acquisition for competitive positioning. The explanation contradicted our established intellectual property strategy and partnership agreement, which required mutual authorization for any patent sales or licensing modifications exceeding $100,000 in value. "I understand the urgency. What technical evaluation did the buyer conduct to justify the $890,000 valuation for our 17 patent portfolio?" Murphy distributed additional contracts while avoiding specific details about the buyer's technical capabilities or market analysis. "Alexander, medical emergencies require immediate business decisions to preserve firm viability. The buyer conducted comprehensive due diligence and determined fair market valuation based on current automotive technology trends." I thanked Murphy for managing our business interests during my medical crisis and requested detailed recovery time to review all documentation. Then I began systematic analysis of the patent sale transaction and authorization procedures. The comprehensive patent management system I had implemented tracked every intellectual property development phase, licensing negotiation, and authorization requirement with timestamps and dual signature verification protocols. What I discovered during the first hour of analysis was sufficient evidence to contact my intellectual property attorney, Sarah Chen, for immediate consultation about unauthorized patent sales and power of attorney violations. The patent transfer records showed that Murphy had systematically misrepresented his authorization authority to execute unilateral sale decisions affecting jointly owned intellectual property that required explicit co-owner consent. "Sarah, I need urgent consultation about unauthorized patent sale by my business partner during my cardiac surgery," I explained during our secure phone consultation from my hospital room. "The documentation shows systematic violation of our partnership agreement and federal patent transfer requirements. Sarah had handled intellectual property disputes throughout her career and immediately recognized the seriousness of unauthorized patent transfers involving jointly owned innovations and federal intellectual property protections. Alexander, if Murphy sold jointly owned patents without your authorization while you were incapacitated, you're looking at intellectual property theft and potential federal patent fraud violations, she explained. The evidence I was compiling showed not just partnership agreement violations, but systematic patent fraud involving forged authorization documents and misrepresentation of ownership rights to commercial buyers. Murphy had apparently been studying our patent portfolio valuations and monitoring my medical condition to identify optimal timing for unauthorized intellectual property liquidation while I was unavailable to provide oversight. Murphy's sale timing coincided precisely with my cardiac surgery when he knew I would be incapacitated and unable to challenge unauthorized patent transfers, I documented while reviewing transaction timestamps. The automated patent management system revealed that Murphy had been systematically attempting to modify authorization procedures and ownership documentation during my pre-surgery medical consultations. Murphy attempted to alter patent ownership records and authorization requirements during my cardiac surgery preparation, I noted. His systematic preparation proves premeditated intellectual property theft rather than emergency business decision-making. The partnership agreement protections I had insisted upon during our firm establishment included specific safeguards against unilateral patent decisions and required dual authorization for any intellectual property transfers exceeding our established thresholds. Our partnership contract explicitly prohibits either partner from executing patent sales without documented consent from both owners, I documented. Murphy's unauthorized sale violates fundamental intellectual property protections. Sarah reviewed my preliminary evidence and immediately recommended comprehensive documentation preservation and potential federal patent fraud investigation. Alexander, unauthorized transfer of jointly owned patents constitutes federal intellectual property crimes, Sarah advised. Your systematic documentation provides comprehensive evidence for both civil recovery and criminal prosecution. The federal patent protection laws included specific provisions against fraudulent patent transfers and unauthorized representation of intellectual property ownership to commercial entities. Murphy's misrepresentation of ownership authority to patent buyers violates federal patent fraud statutes, I noted. His systematic deception creates criminal liability in addition to civil intellectual property violations. Murphy's confidence about emergency business decisions was about to encounter federal intellectual property enforcement and systematic evidence that would expose every aspect of his unauthorized patent manipulation. Have you ever discovered that someone exploited your medical emergency to steal intellectual property while claiming business necessity? Patent protection requires comprehensive documentation when trusted partners attempt unauthorized transfers of jointly owned innovations during vulnerable medical circumstances. My 17-year career in mechanical engineering and patent development had been built on the foundation of systematic research methodology and comprehensive intellectual property documentation that transformed innovative automotive safety concepts into valuable patent portfolios, serving major manufacturers worldwide. The expertise I had developed in mechanical systems optimization and patent strategy represented decades of specialized knowledge that had generated substantial licensing revenue while establishing our firm as leaders in automotive safety innovation. I had established my engineering career in 2007 after completing my master's degree in mechanical engineering at MIT, where I specialized in automotive safety systems and crash dynamics, with additional focus on patent development and intellectual property strategy for emerging technologies. Alexander's systematic approach to patent development and technical documentation provides innovative solutions that exceed automotive industry safety standards, noted early performance evaluation from Ford Motor Company's Advanced Safety Systems division. The patent development methodology I had created emphasized comprehensive technical research, combined with strategic intellectual property planning that ensured maximum protection while enabling lucrative licensing opportunities with automotive manufacturers seeking advanced safety technologies. Torres's patent portfolio development generated $340,000 in annual licensing revenue during his first 5 years, while establishing breakthrough innovations in collision avoidance and adaptive braking systems, documented Quarterly Business Review from 2012. The transition to independent patent development in 2015 had reflected my recognition that automotive safety innovations required specialized intellectual property expertise and systematic development processes that exceeded traditional engineering consulting capabilities. Craig Murphy had joined our partnership in 2018 when my patent portfolio had expanded beyond my individual capacity to manage complex licensing negotiations and technical development projects simultaneously while maintaining comprehensive intellectual property protection. Craig's business development background and patent licensing experience will complement your technical innovation capabilities, I had reasoned when establishing our partnership agreement for Torres Murphy Engineering Solutions. Murphy brought solid credentials in business development and claimed experience in patent licensing negotiations, though his attitudes towards systematic documentation and comprehensive intellectual property protection had gradually created tension within my methodical approach to patent development. Alexander, your documentation requirements exceed standard patent development practices, Murphy had complained regularly during quarterly business reviews. Efficient patent licensing requires streamlined processes rather than excessive technical verification and authorization protocols. I had consistently explained that comprehensive documentation was essential for both patent protection and licensing optimization in the highly competitive automotive technology marketplace. Craig, automotive manufacturers require detailed technical verification and systematic intellectual property protection, I would respond during strategy discussions. Comprehensive documentation ensures patent validity while maximizing licensing value through proven innovation claims. But Murphy viewed systematic documentation as obstacles to rapid licensing revenue rather than essential protection for valuable intellectual property that required years of development and substantial technical investment. Excessive documentation prevents aggressive licensing negotiations and competitive patent portfolio monetization, Murphy had argued during business development planning sessions. The automotive safety patents that had precipitated Murphy's unauthorized sale represented our most valuable intellectual property, including breakthrough collision avoidance algorithms and adaptive braking system innovations that had attracted interest from major automotive manufacturers. Our automotive safety patent portfolio provides innovative solutions that enhance vehicle safety while creating substantial licensing opportunities, I had documented during patent strategy planning. The $890,000 sale value that Murphy had accepted represented significantly below market pricing for our 17 patent portfolio, which independent valuations had estimated at $1.4 million based on comparable automotive technology licensing agreements. Independent patent valuations consistently estimated our portfolio value between $1.2 million and $1.6 million, I had noted during strategic planning discussions. Comprehensive market analysis supports premium licensing opportunities rather than discounted bulk sales, but Murphy had apparently been studying automotive technology market conditions and patent licensing trends while planning to circumvent our established intellectual property strategy during my medical vulnerability. The emergency cardiac surgery that had precipitated Murphy's patent theft represented a serious medical crisis that required immediate intervention for a life-threatening cardiac arrhythmia that had developed during routine engineering work. Alexander's cardiac emergency required immediate surgical intervention to correct dangerous arrhythmia patterns, my cardiologist, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, had explained. The surgical procedure was essential for preventing potentially fatal cardiac complications. The 3-day hospital recovery period had provided Murphy with the opportunity he had apparently been seeking to execute unauthorized patent sales while I was unconscious and unable to provide oversight or challenge his intellectual property decisions. Murphy's sale timing coincided precisely with my cardiac surgery and initial recovery period when I was incapacitated. I documented. His systematic exploitation of medical emergency proves premeditated intellectual property theft. The partnership agreement we had established included specific provisions for medical emergencies and temporary incapacitation that were designed to protect both partners' interests while ensuring continued business operations during health crises. Our partnership structure accommodates medical emergencies while requiring joint authorization for major intellectual property decisions I had established during initial legal consultations. The power of attorney limitations I had insisted upon restricted Murphy's authority to routine business operations, while explicitly excluding intellectual property transfers, patent sales, and licensing modifications exceeding our established thresholds. Partnership power of attorney provisions specifically exclude patent sales and intellectual property transfers from unilateral decision-making authority, our agreement specified. Murphy had apparently been studying these intellectual property protections while planning to forge authorization documents that would enable unauthorized patent sales during my medical incapacitation. Murphy's questions about power of attorney scope and intellectual property transfer procedures suggest preparation for unauthorized patent activities I had noted in partnership documentation. The systematic documentation I maintained through automated patent management provided comprehensive evidence that would expose Murphy's unauthorized claims while protecting both federal intellectual property rights and partnership interests. The cardiac surgery recovery period that had enabled Murphy's patent theft was creating additional vulnerability as I managed both medical recovery and business crisis simultaneously while building evidence for intellectual property protection. Medical recovery combined with intellectual property crisis requires careful coordination of health management and legal protection, I noted. The comprehensive patent development work that informed our intellectual property portfolio created technical complexities that Murphy had apparently underestimated when planning his unauthorized sale to buyers lacking technical expertise. Automotive safety patents require specialized technical knowledge that Murphy lacks, I observed. His unauthorized sale to unqualified buyers threatens patent validity and implementation capabilities. Murphy's exploitation of my cardiac surgery to steal intellectual property was violating both partnership agreements and federal patent protections while potentially compromising years of automotive safety innovation development. Have you ever maintained patent documentation that became essential for protecting intellectual property rights when partners exploited medical emergencies for unauthorized sales? Comprehensive patent management requires systematic protection when trusted relationships become exploitative during vulnerable medical circumstances. The comprehensive investigation I conducted during my hospital recovery period revealed that Murphy's patent sale wasn't an emergency business decision responding to financial crisis, but a carefully planned scheme to exploit my cardiac surgery for systematic theft of our most valuable intellectual property while I was unconscious and unable to challenge his unauthorized activities. My forensic analysis of patent management systems and sale documentation showed that Murphy had been systematically studying federal patent transfer requirements and buyer qualification procedures while planning optimal timing for unauthorized intellectual property liquidation during my medical incapacitation. Murphy's patent sale preparation activities began 3 weeks before my cardiac surgery, I documented through secure hospital internet connection. His systematic planning proves premeditated intellectual property theft rather than emergency business response to medical crisis. The sophistication of Murphy's scheme included coordination with patent buyers who were seeking below-market intellectual property acquisitions from distressed sellers, suggesting systematic exploitation of vulnerable patent owners during medical emergencies. Murphy coordinated with Automotive Tech Acquisitions LLC to purchase undervalued patents from distressed engineering firms, I noted, while examining buyer communications. His systematic coordination with intellectual property vultures proves deliberate theft rather than legitimate business restructuring. But Murphy had made critical errors that would expose his systematic fraud and provide overwhelming evidence for both federal patent crime investigation and civil intellectual property recovery. The automated patent management systems I had implemented included mandatory dual authorization verification and medical emergency protocols that Murphy could not circumvent without creating obvious evidence of systematic document forgery. Murphy's attempts to forge power of attorney authorization and bypass dual signature requirements created comprehensive audit trails of unauthorized access I compiled while reviewing system logs. The technical evidence proves systematic patent fraud rather than legitimate emergency business decisions. The intellectual property attorney Sarah Chen reviewed my expanded evidence compilation and immediately recognized the systematic nature of Murphy's patent fraud and the potential for both civil recovery and federal criminal prosecution. Alexander, Murphy's activities show classic patterns of systematic patent fraud involving unauthorized transfers and deliberate misrepresentation of intellectual property ownership, Sarah observed. The documented evidence proves intentional violation of federal patent protection laws and partnership agreements. The technical methods Murphy had used to facilitate his patent theft included creating false medical emergency documentation and submitting fraudulent power of attorney claims that would justify unauthorized intellectual property transfers to unsuspecting buyers. Murphy fabricated medical emergency business justifications and submitted forged authorization documents to support unauthorized patent sales, I documented. His systematic falsification of legal documentation constitutes patent fraud in addition to partnership violations. The buyer communication analysis revealed that Murphy had been systematically misrepresenting our patent ownership structure and his legal authority while avoiding specific questions about co-owner authorization and medical emergency protocols. Murphy provided false representations to patent buyers about exclusive ownership and emergency authorization authority, I noted. His systematic buyer deception proves fraudulent intent rather than legitimate business emergency response. Most concerning was Murphy's systematic access to my medical information and cardiac surgery scheduling that he had been exploiting to coordinate optimal timing for unauthorized patent sales while I was completely incapacitated. Murphy accessed confidential medical scheduling information to coordinate patent sale timing with my cardiac surgery procedure, I documented. His exploitation of medical information enabled systematic intellectual property theft during maximum vulnerability. The patent buyer due diligence records revealed that Murphy had been providing false technical specifications and ownership documentation while misrepresenting the scope of his authorization authority for intellectual property transfers. Murphy submitted false patent ownership documentation and misrepresented technical capabilities to facilitate unauthorized sales, I noted. His systematic buyer fraud created additional criminal liability beyond partnership violations. The timeline analysis revealed that Murphy's patent fraud had accelerated during my pre-surgery medical consultations when he realized that cardiac surgery would provide extended incapacitation opportunity for unauthorized intellectual property liquidation. Murphy's patent sale activities increased dramatically during my cardiac surgery preparation period, I calculated. His systematic exploitation of medical emergency timing proves premeditated intellectual property theft. Sarah recommended immediate federal patent fraud investigation and comprehensive evidence preservation to prevent Murphy from destroying records or completing additional unauthorized intellectual property transfers. Alexander, we need immediate federal intervention to prevent Murphy from transferring additional patents while investigators examine the full scope of his intellectual property fraud, Sarah advised. Your documentation provides comprehensive evidence for federal patent crime prosecution. The Federal Bureau of Investigation's Intellectual Property Crime Division was notified about potential unauthorized transfer of jointly owned patents involving systematic document forgery and fraudulent misrepresentation to commercial buyers. Murphy's activities may constitute federal patent fraud that threatens intellectual property protection systems, FBI investigator Michael Torres explained during secure hospital communication. The United States Patent and Trademark Office Fraud Investigation Unit initiated parallel examination of Murphy's patent transfer documentation and potential violations of federal intellectual property protection regulations. Murphy's patent sales involved systematic misrepresentation of ownership authority and fraudulent transfer documentation, USPTO investigator Jennifer Walsh reported. The evidence compilation I was providing included comprehensive documentation of Murphy's systematic patent theft, authorization fraud, and deliberate misrepresentation to commercial intellectual property buyers. Murphy's documented activities violate federal patent fraud statutes, intellectual property protection laws, and commercial fraud regulations, I noted in my formal complaint. The patent buyer's legal team was beginning to discover fundamental problems with Murphy's ownership claims and the federal authorization procedures that had been systematically circumvented through fraudulent documentation. Automotive Tech Acquisitions LLC was systematically deceived about patent ownership structure and transfer authorization, their legal counsel Robert Kim reported to federal investigators. The systematic documentation I had maintained through automated patent management was providing overwhelming evidence that would expose Murphy's fraud while ensuring comprehensive protection for both federal intellectual property rights and commercial patent integrity. Your systematic approach to patent documentation has prevented major intellectual property loss while creating comprehensive evidence that makes Murphy's fraud impossible to deny, Sarah observed. The medical emergency exploitation that Murphy had orchestrated was creating additional federal criminal exposure, as investigators recognized that systematic exploitation of medical incapacitation represented aggravated intellectual property crime. Murphy's exploitation of medical emergency for patent theft creates enhanced federal criminal liability, Sarah noted. His systematic targeting of medical vulnerability justifies maximum criminal prosecution. The comprehensive patent protection I had implemented was achieving complete success in exposing unauthorized intellectual property theft while providing overwhelming evidence for both criminal prosecution and civil recovery of stolen patents. Murphy's confidence about emergency business authorization was about to encounter federal intellectual property investigation and systematic evidence that would expose every aspect of his patent fraud while ensuring appropriate criminal accountability. Have you ever discovered that comprehensive patent management systems could expose systematic intellectual property theft disguised as medical emergency business decisions? Federal patent protection sometimes becomes essential for detecting sophisticated fraud schemes targeting vulnerable patent owners during medical crises. The strategic legal and federal response that Sarah Chen developed required careful coordination between patent fraud investigation, intellectual property recovery procedures, and medical emergency protection to maximize patent restoration while ensuring appropriate prosecution for Murphy's systematic intellectual property theft and federal patent crime violations. Alexander, Murphy's unauthorized transfer of jointly owned patents creates exposure under federal patent fraud statutes, intellectual property protection laws, and medical emergency exploitation regulations, Sarah explained during our comprehensive strategy session conducted through secure hospital communication systems. The evidence you've compiled supports simultaneous federal investigation and criminal prosecution that will ensure complete patent recovery and maximum accountability. The federal patent fraud investigation strategy focused on Murphy's systematic document forgery and unauthorized representation to commercial buyers that warranted immediate federal intervention and intellectual property protection enforcement. Your comprehensive documentation proves systematic violation of federal patent transfer requirements and joint ownership protections, Sarah noted. Murphy's coordination with commercial buyers constitutes federal patent fraud that justifies immediate enforcement action. But the most immediate priority was preventing Murphy from completing additional unauthorized patent transfers, while federal investigators built comprehensive cases for both intellectual property recovery and criminal prosecution. We need emergency federal intervention to prevent Murphy from transferring remaining patents, while investigators examine the full scope of his systematic patent fraud, Sarah recommended. The federal criminal referral documentation I was preparing included comprehensive evidence of Murphy's systematic patent theft, document forgery, and commercial fraud that warranted prosecution under federal intellectual property crime and conspiracy statutes. Murphy's activities constitute multiple federal violations, including patent fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to defraud intellectual property owners, Sarah explained. Meanwhile, I was coordinating with cardiac recovery specialists to ensure optimal medical management while building comprehensive intellectual property protection cases and federal fraud investigation cooperation. Sarah, Murphy's patent theft is creating severe stress during cardiac recovery when medical stability requires minimal business crisis management, I noted through secure communication. The systematic intellectual property violation is compromising medical recovery while threatening years of innovation development. The technical analysis I was conducting revealed that Murphy's patent fraud had affected not just individual innovations, but had also compromised our entire automotive safety research program through unauthorized transfer to unqualified commercial buyers. Murphy's unauthorized patent sales included core automotive safety algorithms that support ongoing research and development programs, I documented. His intellectual property theft threatens continuation of breakthrough safety innovation projects. The forensic accounting that Sarah arranged showed that Murphy's patent sales had been coordinated with personal financial benefits, while systematically avoiding partnership revenue sharing and intellectual property development cost recovery. Murphy's patent fraud generated $890,000 in personal revenue, while avoiding partnership profit distribution and development cost reimbursement, forensic accountant Lisa Chen calculated. The financial analysis proves systematic theft rather than emergency business decision-making. The Federal Bureau of Investigation intellectual property investigation that began within 48 hours of our complaint included comprehensive examination of Murphy's patent fraud methods and commercial buyer coordination by experienced intellectual property crime specialists. Murphy's patent fraud appears to constitute systematic federal intellectual property violations that warrant immediate criminal investigation, lead investigator Michael Torres reported after reviewing preliminary evidence. The federal investigation was revealing that Murphy's patent theft violated multiple intellectual property protection laws, including patent fraud statutes, document forgery regulations, and commercial misrepresentation provisions. Murphy's systematic patent fraud violates federal intellectual property crime statutes and commercial fraud protection requirements, investigator Torres noted. But Murphy's most serious error was systematically falsifying federal patent transfer documentation and medical emergency authorization while coordinating with commercial buyers seeking discounted intellectual property acquisitions. Murphy created false federal documentation and coordinated with commercial intellectual property buyers to facilitate systematic patent theft, Sarah observed. His federal document forgery creates enhanced criminal liability. The United States Patent and Trademark Office investigation was revealing that Murphy's patent fraud was part of broader commercial schemes targeting medical emergency situations to acquire undervalued intellectual property from vulnerable patent owners. Murphy's coordination with Automotive Tech Acquisitions LLC suggests systematic exploitation of medical emergencies to acquire discounted patents, USPTO investigator Walsh reported. The Department of Justice Intellectual Property Section was investigating potential violations of federal patent protection regulations involving systematic false statements to government agencies and unauthorized appropriation of jointly owned intellectual property. Murphy's false patent transfer documentation may violate federal intellectual property protection statutes governing joint ownership and medical emergency protocols, DOJ investigator Sarah Davis reported. The comprehensive evidence compilation was supporting federal charges that could result in 15 to 20 years in prison, plus complete forfeiture of unauthorized patent sales and enhanced penalties for medical emergency exploitation. Murphy's documented activities support federal charges under patent fraud statutes, document forgery laws, and conspiracy provisions, federal prosecutor Jennifer Martinez explained. The international implications were also significant, as Murphy's unauthorized patent transfers could affect automotive safety standards and technology licensing agreements that involved multinational manufacturing partnerships. Murphy's stolen automotive safety patents support international licensing agreements with European and Asian automotive manufacturers, patent licensing analyst Robert Wilson noted. His unauthorized transfers create international intellectual property complications. The commercial buyer's recognition of patent fraud was creating immediate pressure for sale reversal and comprehensive intellectual property restoration, while exposing Murphy's systematic misrepresentation to federal investigation. Automotive Tech Acquisitions LLC is voluntarily reversing patent purchases after discovering Murphy's fraudulent ownership claims, their legal counsel reported to federal investigators. The patent recovery process was identifying additional intellectual property that Murphy had attempted to transfer without authorization, including proprietary research methodologies and technical development tools. Murphy's fraud scheme included proprietary research software and development methodologies that exceed patent portfolio scope, I documented. But the most significant development was the medical community's recognition that my systematic documentation had prevented potential compromise of innovative automotive safety technologies while enabling comprehensive federal investigation during cardiac recovery. Torres's patent management protocols prevented major intellectual property loss while providing comprehensive evidence for federal prosecution during medical crisis. Medical Legal Ethics Review Board Chairman, Dr. Patricia Rodriguez noted, the coordinated federal response was ensuring that Murphy's patent theft would result in both complete intellectual property recovery and maximum criminal accountability, while protecting medical emergency patients from exploitation. Multiple agency coordination ensures comprehensive patent recovery while preventing additional unauthorized intellectual property transfers during medical vulnerabilities, Sarah observed. Murphy's systematic exploitation of my cardiac surgery was about to encounter coordinated federal enforcement that would expose the full scope of his crimes while ensuring appropriate protection for both personal intellectual property rights and federal patent protection systems. The evidence I had compiled through automated patent management was enabling federal agencies to build comprehensive cases that addressed both individual fraud and broader threats to intellectual property protection during medical emergencies. Have you ever required coordination between federal patent protection agencies and medical emergency protocols to address systematic intellectual property theft? Sometimes comprehensive patent documentation becomes essential for protecting both individual innovations and broader intellectual property security during vulnerable medical circumstances. The coordinated federal investigation that began executing 4 weeks after my initial patent fraud complaint created immediate disruption to Murphy's intellectual property operations while exposing the systematic nature of his patent theft to federal investigators, commercial buyers, and intellectual property law specialists who had been unaware of his coordinated scheme to exploit medical emergencies for unauthorized patent acquisitions. The emergency patent protection orders that the United States Patent and Trademark Office implemented after reviewing my comprehensive evidence immediately prevented Murphy from completing additional unauthorized intellectual property transfers while securing federal oversight of all future patent activities. Mr. Murphy is subject to immediate federal oversight of all patent transfer activities pending resolution of systematic intellectual property fraud charges, USPTO Director, Dr. Sarah Wilson announced. His documented patent theft creates immediate federal intellectual property violations that require comprehensive government intervention. Murphy's response to the federal patent protection orders revealed his growing panic as he realized that his intellectual property theft had triggered multiple government investigations and potential federal prosecution rather than the simple business liquidation he had anticipated. Murphy's emergency legal motions show desperation about federal oversight and recognition that his patent fraud constitutes federal crimes, Sarah Chen observed. His legal strategy indicates understanding that criminal prosecution is inevitable. The federal criminal charges that prosecutors filed included systematic patent fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to defraud intellectual property owners that carried potential sentences exceeding 20 years in federal prison. Mr. Murphy faces multiple felony charges including patent fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to defraud joint patent owners, Federal Prosecutor Martinez announced. His systematic intellectual property violations constitute serious federal crimes that threaten patent protection integrity. The Automotive Tech Acquisitions LLC investigation was revealing that Murphy's patent theft had been coordinated with commercial buyers who specialized in acquiring undervalued intellectual property from distressed or vulnerable patent owners during medical emergencies. Murphy coordinated with commercial buyers who systematically target medical emergency situations to acquire discounted patents, FBI investigator Torres noted. His activities constitute systematic exploitation of medical vulnerability for intellectual property theft. But the most damaging development for Murphy was the patent victim impact investigation that revealed his intellectual property fraud had compromised automotive safety innovation development that could have enhanced vehicle safety for millions of drivers. Murphy's patent theft affected automotive safety innovations that were being developed for collision avoidance and adaptive braking systems, victim advocate Jennifer Adams reported. His intellectual property fraud threatened public safety through disruption of safety technology development. The Department of Transportation investigation was expanding to examine whether Murphy's patent theft had compromised federal automotive safety research programs and technology development initiatives that relied on our innovative safety algorithms. Murphy's stolen patents supported federal automotive safety research programs designed to reduce traffic fatalities, DOT investigator Robert Kim noted. His intellectual property theft threatens public safety technology development. The Federal Trade Commission investigation was revealing that Murphy's coordination with Automotive Tech Acquisitions LLC constituted systematic commercial fraud designed to exploit medical emergencies for intellectual property acquisition at below-market values. Murphy's commercial coordination represents systematic exploitation of medical emergencies for intellectual property fraud, FTC investigator Jennifer Walsh reported. His activities threaten commercial patent protection and medical emergency patient rights. The asset recovery process was identifying patent fraud proceeds that Murphy had transferred to personal investment accounts while attempting to hide stolen intellectual property revenue from potential restitution obligations. Murphy transferred fraudulent patent revenue to personal accounts and luxury consulting equipment, asset recovery specialist Linda Thompson reported. His systematic asset hiding proves consciousness of guilt. The plea negotiations that Murphy's intellectual property attorneys initiated revealed their recognition that the comprehensive evidence made federal conviction inevitable while civil patent recovery was proceeding rapidly. Murphy's legal team is requesting plea negotiations due to overwhelming evidence of systematic patent fraud, Prosecutor Martinez reported. His federal exposure eliminates most defense strategies, but Murphy's emotional breakdown during federal interrogation revealed the psychological pressure of facing multiple intellectual property crime charges and recognition that his patent theft scheme would result in substantial financial penalties and potential imprisonment. Murphy broke down completely when federal investigators presented evidence of his systematic patent fraud and medical emergency exploitation, FBI investigator Torres reported. His confession included admission of fraudulent intent and commercial buyer coordination. The confession provided federal investigators with detailed information about Murphy's patent theft methods and commercial coordination while confirming systematic exploitation of medical emergency situations for intellectual property fraud. Murphy's cooperation revealed systematic patent fraud targeting medical emergency patients across multiple commercial relationships, Prosecutor Martinez noted. His confession provides evidence for expanding federal investigation. The intellectual property restoration process was proceeding rapidly as federal investigators implemented comprehensive patent recovery for all unauthorized transfers while providing enhanced protection against future medical emergency exploitation. Complete patent recovery plus enhanced federal oversight ensures protection for all joint intellectual property owners, I calculated, while managing cardiac recovery and legal coordination simultaneously. The comprehensive remedies address both individual harm and systematic patent fraud, The professional reputation recovery was exceeding expectations, as engineering colleagues and automotive industry contacts appreciated my systematic approach to exposing patent fraud while protecting intellectual property rights during medical vulnerability. Alexander's documentation and federal reporting demonstrates exactly the kind of professional integrity needed to protect automotive safety innovation, noted testimonial from automotive engineering colleague Dorothy Martinez. The patent portfolio investigation was revealing that Murphy's intellectual property fraud had threatened not just individual patents, but also ongoing automotive safety research programs that depended on our innovative collision avoidance algorithms. Murphy's patent theft compromised automotive safety research programs that could have prevented traffic fatalities, automotive safety researcher Patricia Newman observed. The United States Patent and Trademark Office was using our patent fraud documentation as model evidence for detecting and preventing systematic intellectual property theft during medical emergencies and other vulnerable circumstances. Torres's systematic documentation and federal reporting provide excellent examples of protecting patent rights during medical vulnerability, USPTO Training Director David Martinez noted. The speaking opportunities at intellectual property conferences and patent protection seminars were generating additional recognition while establishing my reputation as an expert in patent fraud detection and medical emergency intellectual property protection. Torres's experience demonstrates how systematic documentation and federal reporting can expose and prevent medical emergency patent fraud, observed conference organizer Dr. Jennifer Walsh. Murphy's systematic patent fraud was about to result in comprehensive federal accountability while validating systematic patent management and medical emergency protections as essential safeguards for intellectual property rights and innovation security. The coordinated federal response had transformed attempted intellectual property theft into enhanced professional recognition while demonstrating the effectiveness of systematic documentation and federal oversight during medical emergency patent fraud schemes. Have you ever seen systematic patent fraud completely defeated through coordinated federal enforcement that protected both individual inventors and broader intellectual property security? Sometimes comprehensive documentation and federal reporting create industry-wide protection while ensuring appropriate criminal accountability for intellectual property violations during medical emergencies. The comprehensive resolution of Murphy's patent fraud case occurred within 8 months of my initial federal complaint, delivering complete intellectual property recovery, enhanced patent protection, and federal criminal accountability that exceeded initial expectations, while establishing new industry standards for protecting jointly owned patents from systematic theft during medical emergencies and other vulnerable circumstances. Murphy's guilty plea on all federal charges included systematic patent fraud, document forgery, conspiracy, and medical emergency exploitation that resulted in a 10-year federal prison sentence, plus permanent prohibition from intellectual property activities and complete restitution of stolen patent proceeds for all affected inventors. Mr. Murphy's systematic patent fraud represents a serious violation of intellectual property rights and federal law, Federal Judge Patricia Stevens stated during sentencing. His exploitation of medical emergency situations to steal patents warrants maximum punishment under federal intellectual property crime guidelines. The criminal conviction required Murphy to forfeit all personal assets including his consulting firm, technical equipment, and investment accounts that had been acquired using proceeds from systematic patent fraud and intellectual property theft. Murphy's asset forfeiture ensures complete victim recovery plus enhanced penalties that reflect the medical emergency exploitation aspects of his patent fraud, asset recovery specialist Thompson reported. The comprehensive recovery exceeds original fraud amounts due to federal intellectual property crime penalties and medical vulnerability enhancements. But beyond financial recovery, Murphy's prosecution created engineering industry recognition of systematic patent documentation as essential protection against intellectual property theft and medical emergency exploitation during vulnerable circumstances. Torres's comprehensive patent management documentation provided the evidentiary foundation for the most successful patent fraud prosecution in federal intellectual property court history, United States Patent and Trademark Office Director Dr. David Martinez noted. His systematic approach should be adopted by all engineers and inventors facing intellectual property vulnerabilities and medical emergency risks. The professional opportunities that resulted from my ethical handling of Murphy's patent fraud exceeded anything our original partnership could have provided for engineering development and intellectual property recognition. Torres Automotive Safety Solutions, the independent engineering firm I established, using patent recovery proceeds and enhanced professional reputation, was attracting automotive manufacturers who valued proven innovation capabilities and comprehensive intellectual property integrity. Alexander's exposure of systematic patent fraud demonstrates exactly the kind of engineering integrity we need for automotive safety innovation development, noted client testimonial from General Motors Advanced Safety Systems Director Robert Chen. The automotive engineering practice was generating annual revenue of $580,000 while providing professional satisfaction that focused on advanced safety innovation rather than patent fraud prevention and federal compliance management. Independent automotive engineering with comprehensive patent protection allows complete focus on safety innovation excellence, I reflected during professional development presentations. The former engineering colleagues who joined Torres Automotive Safety Solutions as senior developers represented validation that my technical expertise and ethical standards created more value than Murphy's unauthorized patent liquidation schemes. Alexander's systematic approach to patent development and ethical intellectual property practices provide reliability and innovation capabilities that justify premium automotive engineering fees, explained personnel metrics showing recruitment of 4 senior automotive safety specialists. The speaking opportunities at engineering conferences and patent protection seminars were generating additional revenue while establishing my reputation as an expert in intellectual property fraud prevention and medical emergency patent protection. Torres's experience demonstrates how comprehensive patent documentation can expose and prevent systematic intellectual property theft during medical vulnerabilities, observed conference organizer Dr. Jennifer Walsh. The United States Patent and Trademark Office had implemented enhanced patent protection recommendations based on Murphy's fraud case, creating new federal standards for preventing systematic intellectual property theft during medical emergencies and other vulnerable circumstances. Torres's patent protection protocols have become model practices for engineers and inventors seeking to prevent intellectual property theft while maintaining comprehensive innovation development, USPTO Compliance Director Lisa Chen noted. Murphy's complete professional destruction served as engineering industry warning about the consequences of systematic patent fraud and the importance of ethical intellectual property practices during innovation development and medical emergency situations. The Murphy prosecution sends clear messages throughout the engineering community about federal enforcement capabilities for patent fraud and intellectual property violations, legal analyst Patricia Newman observed. But the most meaningful outcome was validation of systematic patent documentation and medical emergency protections as reliable safeguards against intellectual property theft during cardiac recovery and other medical vulnerabilities. Murphy's prosecution proves that comprehensive patent documentation and ethical engineering practices create sustainable competitive advantages, I observed during ethics workshops. The automotive industry recognition I received for patent fraud prevention expertise had generated licensing opportunities and strategic partnerships that exceeded the financial benefits of traditional engineering partnerships. Torres's ethical handling of patent fraud demonstrates engineering integrity that attracts both licensing agreements and industry collaboration opportunities, automotive consultant Sarah Davis noted. The enhanced patent licensing capabilities I had developed using case experience were providing additional revenue streams and professional recognition that reflected superior automotive safety expertise and verified intellectual property integrity. Torres Automotive Safety Solutions' proven patent protection and comprehensive safety innovation provide automotive technologies that exceed traditional engineering development approaches, client testimonial showed. The comprehensive legal victory had demonstrated that systematic patent documentation and federal protections provided more reliable intellectual property security than partnership relationships based on convenience rather than verified ethical standards and legal safeguards. Professional competence in patent protection creates intellectual property security that transcends individual partnership arrangements, I noted during automotive engineering seminars. Murphy's systematic patent fraud during my cardiac surgery had inadvertently created opportunities for enhanced engineering independence, federal recognition, and meaningful automotive safety relationships that exceeded anything our original partnership could have achieved. Sometimes the most systematic intellectual property betrayal creates catalysts for independent success and enhanced protection standards, I reflected during professional development workshops. The patent documentation methods that had exposed Murphy's fraud were being adopted by engineering firms while generating ongoing consultation revenue and industry leadership recognition. Torres's patent protection protocols provide comprehensive security against intellectual property theft while supporting legitimate automotive safety development. Noted licensing agreement with National Automotive Engineering Association. Murphy's attempt to steal automotive safety patents while exploiting my medical emergency had ultimately created opportunities for enhanced engineering independence, federal leadership recognition, and meaningful safety innovation that exceeded anything traditional partnership arrangements could have provided. The systematic approach to patent protection that had defeated coordinated intellectual property theft was providing sustainable competitive advantages that attracted the most innovative automotive safety projects available to independent engineering firms with proven intellectual property integrity. Have you ever discovered that systematic patent documentation could transform attempted intellectual property theft into opportunities for enhanced engineering success and federal recognition? Sometimes, comprehensive patent protection becomes the foundation for independent success that exceeds traditional partnership benefits while advancing automotive safety innovation. Standing in the expanded Torres Automotive Safety Solutions Laboratory, 18 months after Murphy's conviction and imprisonment, I reflected on how his systematic theft of our patent portfolio during my cardiac surgery had inadvertently transformed my career from partnership management to industry leadership in automotive safety innovation and intellectual property protection. The independent engineering firm had grown to generate $740,000 in annual revenue, while serving automotive manufacturers who valued proven innovation capabilities and comprehensive patent integrity above traditional engineering consulting approaches. The 4,200-square-foot research facility accommodated advanced automotive safety testing capabilities and comprehensive patent development resources that supported both routine engineering consulting and specialized intellectual property protection services that had become my professional specialty through federal recognition and enhanced industry credentials. Working with an automotive engineer who has personally tested comprehensive patent protection provides confidence and intellectual property security that eliminates concerns about unauthorized patent theft and innovation fraud, noted senior safety systems engineer Patricia Lynch, a former National Highway Traffic Safety Administration specialist who had joined our team. The automotive engineering practice I had established was generating substantially higher income than my original partnership arrangement while providing professional satisfaction that focused on advanced safety innovation rather than patent fraud prevention and federal compliance management. Torres Automotive Safety Solutions' systematic approach to patent development and ethical intellectual property practices provides automotive safety innovations that exceed traditional engineering consulting standards. Client testimonial from Ford Motor Company Advanced Safety Director Michael Torres noted, the business expansion that had resulted from Murphy's prosecution, combined with federal recognition for patent fraud prevention expertise, had created professional opportunities that exceeded anything achievable through traditional engineering partnerships with shared intellectual property vulnerabilities. Alexander's transformation from fraud victim to industry patent protection leader demonstrates how systematic integrity and comprehensive documentation create lasting competitive advantages in automotive safety engineering, Automotive Engineering Quarterly observed. But the most significant achievement was federal recognition that established me as the definitive expert in patent fraud prevention and systematic intellectual property documentation for automotive engineers facing partnership vulnerabilities and medical emergency risks. Torres's experience provides unique insights into preventing and detecting intellectual property theft that threatens both individual innovation rights and broader automotive safety development, Automotive Patent Review noted. The Society of Automotive Engineers had requested my participation in developing enhanced patent protection standards and intellectual property security protocols that would protect automotive innovators from systematic patent theft and medical emergency exploitation. Torres's patent documentation methods and fraud detection expertise provide essential guidance for strengthening intellectual property protection throughout the automotive engineering community, SAE Ethics Committee Chair Dr. David Martinez explained. Annual speaking engagements at automotive conferences, patent protection seminars, and professional engineering workshops were generating supplemental income of $120,000 while reinforcing my expertise in systematic documentation and ethical patent development. Torres's systematic approach to patent protection and intellectual property fraud prevention has become the industry standard for automotive engineers working with sensitive safety innovations, National Society of Professional Engineers President Jennifer Adams observed. Murphy's 10-year federal prison sentence had concluded with complete patent forfeiture, permanent intellectual property prohibition, and ongoing restitution obligations that would continue throughout his supervised release period. Murphy's systematic patent fraud resulted in the most comprehensive intellectual property prosecution in federal court history, Prosecutor Martinez noted. His case demonstrates that patent theft and medical emergency exploitation carry severe criminal consequences that cannot be avoided through sophisticated commercial coordination or fraudulent documentation schemes. But Murphy's prosecution had also created enhanced protection for automotive engineering industry integrity by establishing legal precedents that strengthened patent fraud enforcement and intellectual property protection capabilities. The Murphy prosecution clarified federal enforcement capabilities for systematic patent theft and established deterrent effects throughout the automotive engineering community, legal analyst Robert Kim observed. The patent protection methodologies I had developed and refined through personal experience with systematic intellectual property theft were generating licensing revenue from engineering firms who needed proven protection frameworks while ensuring proper federal implementation and ethical oversight. Torres's patent protection protocols provide comprehensive security against intellectual property theft while supporting legitimate automotive safety development and optimal innovation outcomes, noted licensing agreement with International Automotive Engineering Network. The professional reputation I had built through ethical crisis management was attracting strategic consultation opportunities with major automotive organizations who valued demonstrated integrity and systematic patent protection expertise. Torres Automotive Safety Solutions, proven patent integrity, and comprehensive intellectual property protection capabilities make them ideal partners for the most sensitive automotive safety initiatives and innovation protection programs, explained consulting agreement with multinational automotive consortium. Looking back on Murphy's systematic betrayal and attempted theft of our automotive safety patents, I realized that his sophisticated patent fraud had inadvertently created opportunities for professional growth, federal recognition, and automotive engineering success that exceeded anything traditional partnership arrangements could have provided. Sometimes the most comprehensive intellectual property theft becomes the catalyst for professional development and federal recognition that transforms entire career trajectories into automotive safety leadership, I observed during engineering excellence conferences. The systematic patent documentation that had exposed Murphy's fraud was serving as the foundation for expanded consultation services that helped other automotive engineers prevent intellectual property theft while maintaining ethical innovation standards and comprehensive federal protection. Murphy's theft attempt validated the commercial value of systematic patent protection while creating legal precedents that enhanced industry-wide intellectual property security capabilities, I noted during professional development workshops. The comprehensive legal victory had demonstrated that systematic documentation and federal patent protections provided more reliable innovation security than partnership relationships based on convenience rather than verified ethical standards and patent protection requirements. Professional competence in systematic patent protection and ethical automotive engineering create sustainable competitive advantages that transcend individual partnership arrangements or intellectual property strategies, I explained during federal protection presentations. Murphy's attempt to steal automotive safety patents while exploiting my cardiac surgery had ultimately strengthened my professional position while creating consultation opportunities and federal recognition that established Torres Automotive Safety Solutions as the Southwest's leading advocate for ethical automotive engineering and comprehensive patent protection. The people who attempt to exploit medical emergencies through systematic patent theft sometimes end up creating opportunities for their victims to achieve greater success through validated expertise and comprehensive federal recognition, I reflected during automotive safety leadership seminars. The experience had proven that professional competence in systematic documentation and ethical patent development could transform attempted intellectual property theft into enhanced engineering success and federal authority that exceeded original partnership compensation arrangements. Murphy's systematic patent fraud had inadvertently provided the foundation for building federal recognition, professional leadership, and automotive engineering expansion that represented the most successful and meaningful period in my 17-year patent development career. Professional relationships built on systematic integrity and verified protection standards prove more durable and valuable than partnerships based on convenient arrangements or patent strategies that can be compromised through fraudulent activities and intellectual property violations. The automotive engineering firm that had emerged from systematic patent theft attempts was generating higher revenue, enhanced federal recognition, and more meaningful safety innovation relationships than anything traditional partnerships could have achieved. Have you discovered that systematic patent documentation and ethical engineering practices can transform attempted intellectual property theft into opportunities for professional growth and federal recognition? Sometimes the most sophisticated patent fraud becomes the foundation for building enhanced competitive advantages through validated expertise and comprehensive automotive safety authority. If this story of systematic documentation and patent protection resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button to Revenge Tales with Luke. Share your experiences with intellectual property theft and patent protection in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's facing similar challenges with systematic patent fraud and partnership exploitation during medical emergencies. See you in our next story.